Hi guys, skills, plugins, agents, MCP servers, slash commands. If you are somebody who is struggling to understand what this means, don't worry. I understand all of this is scattered across different documentation pages and it is really confusing. So here's my promise. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what each of these does, when to use them, and most importantly, when not to use them. So let's start with it. Before we dive into each of these concepts, it is important that you have a mental model. You can think of Claude Code as a person who is doing your job, and these slash commands are the task list. Basically, specific things that you want Claude to do right now. And then moving on, skills are the knowledge. It's the playbooks and how to guides. So it's basically like Claude reads them before doing any work. So think of it like you hired an intern and then you are giving them the training manual. So consider skills to be like that. Then the MCP servers are the tools and access. It could be a database, Jira, Slack, GitHub, all the external system that Claude can reach and actually use. Fourth thing is plugins. So you can consider plugins to be a distribution mechanism, a way for you to bundle skills, MCP servers, agents, commands, and hooked together in a package that you can share with others. Think of plugins of something like an app where you ask users to install it. This is at a broader level. Now let's deep dive into each of these and see them in action. Let's start with the most basic concept out there, which is commands, or also known as slash commands. This could be tried via the Cloud Code CLI. Here I'm doing all of it in the desktop app. So what we need to do here is basically we need to type slash and then you can see the commands that are being supported. Essentially, there are two types of commands. The first is the built-in commands, something that Claude supports by themselves. And the second is the custom commands, commands that you and I can create for us. So to take an example of a built-in command, we have compact, which basically clears the whole conversation history and put a summary in context. And then the second type is the custom commands that you and I can create. So these commands are nothing but basically a markdown file. Let me take you through some examples for the custom commands. Create a custom command for me that lets me review PRs in a particular repository. I will give you the GitHub URL as the argument, and whatever existing open PRs are there, you help me review it. Let's see how that will perform. Here it's asking me to create a directory under .claude folder for commands. So we will allow this for the session. It is vibing. Let's wait for its output. Okay, so it has returned a review PR markdown file in the commands directory. So this is how we can use it. And yeah, this is how you can create your own command. For that, we need to go into home directory .claude folder. And inside that, we have this folder called commands. And this is the custom slash command that got created called review-pr. And you can see basically it's helping the user review open pull request in a particular GitHub repository. And we need to pass in the GitHub URL as an argument and it will just review it for us. So this is how easy it is to create command for yourself. So another thing to note here is these commands could be at a personal level, like we just saw it was under my user, or this could have been created at a project level, which goes under the .claude folder inside that specific project. And the important thing is these slash commands are explicitly triggered. So you as the user, we need to type in slash and then the command, and then we can run it however times we want. It's something that is up to us to decide when we want to run it. Now let's move on to the next concept, which is skills. I'm sure all of you might have heard the term skills like a dozen times everywhere. And this is something that transformed Claude into a really smart bot. So skill is a folder that contains a skill.md file, and this markdown file is having instructions. Optionally, it can have scripts, templates, reference documentation. So it's basically markdown plus some supporting files. So what makes skills different from slash commands is the Claude can auto invoke these skills. You write a description in the skill.md file, and when Claude thinks there is a relevant task, depending on the description that you have given, it automatically loads that skill. So if you want to see how a skill would look like, I'll recommend you guys to check out the Agent Skills repository by Vercel. And they have done phenomenal job in creating these skills and it's really helpful. So we'll go to skills and here let's take the example of web design guidelines. So this is the skill.md file and I'll go to the code part. And this is just a markdown file. As we talked about, it will have a description, name, some metadata, and basically how it works and some guidelines and usage that you want. So this is how easy it is to create a skill. And if you want me to teach you guys how you can create your own skill, let me know in the comments below. I'll cover it in the next video. Now I'll show you one of the skills in action. For showing you the skills demo, I'll be the example of the Context Hub skill, and it is something that I've just installed yesterday. If you don't know what Context Hub is and how you can make your AI agents use the latest documentation, do check it out. The video was released yesterday. Now moving forward, so in this case, let's say, help me write a Python script that does the Supabase integration for me. If you look in the background, it's launching a skill called Get API Docs. This is the same skill that I was mentioning. So we are going to give it permissions. I'll change it to auto accept edits for this one. So here we can see I didn't tell Claude to use a particular skill. It just has used it depending on the context and the relevance. And this is something that I've spent a lot of time myself because these agents don't know about the latest doc. But using the skill really helped me. And Claude is the one that was able to figure out, okay, I need to use this skill. So that's the difference between the slash commands and skills. So to work with skills, Claude uses something called progressive disclosure, which basically means in the case of skills, Claude only sees the name and description. And when Claude thinks we actually need a particular skill, it loads the full instructions. And this really helps us in keeping the context window efficient. Now comes the $1,000,000 question. When do you use skill and when do you use a slash command? I know all of you by now know the answer to this, but just to reiterate, we will use a slash command when we want explicit manual control. You just type slash and the command, and then it will run for us. And a skill is used when Claude thinks it needs to be used, and you don't have to remember the skill name or anything like that. It's just up to Claude to know what it wants. So if you're triggering something, you know it's a command. And if Claude has to figure it on its own, then you know it has to become a skill. Now, moving on to the next concept, which is MCP. And I know this one confuses like a lot of people, and it's actually super important. So, to put it in simplest way, you can think of MCP like Claude's connection to the external world. So basically, if Claude has to plug in and use any of the external systems, let it be Postgres, Jira, Slack, GitHub, Google Drive, Figma, anything, then MCP is something that comes into picture. As you might know, Claude works with its context window, so it only works with what it has. And with MCP, Claude is getting like superpowers. Claude can query our database, read GitHub issues, it can send Slack messages all through the real API calls and with real data. Earlier, when MCP was introduced by Anthropic in November 2024, but now it has become an open standard under the Linux Foundation. And it is something that has widely been adopted. Google, Microsoft, all the big players have adopted it, and the ecosystem is just growing on day by day. So now it's no longer a cloud thing, it has become the industry standard. So essentially, you can run this in the CLI by using slash MCP and it will give you the MCP servers that are being used. And for the desktop app, we can see it under settings connector. And here you can see I'm using the GitHub and the Google Drive MCP already. So let's try to do a task using this. Okay. Now let's try an example by using one of the MCP servers I have. I have the Canvas MCP server already. Connect to my Canva and show me the latest thumbnail that I've created for my YouTube video. Okay, let's see how this will work. I'll change the permissions. If you see it's already onto Canva and it's searching for the designs to get the idea, like earlier, my Claude doesn't have access to the external world. Now, since I have the Canva integrated, it is able to access my Canvas account and tell me the thumbnail that I have designed. So that is pretty cool. For using this MCP servers, you don't have to say anything explicitly, just say it in plain English and Claude will figure out on its own. Now, if you might be thinking, okay, there's some similarity between skills and MCP, then you are right. So MCP relates to skills in the manner that the skills tell Claude as in how to do something. And the MCP is the one that gives Claude access to do it. They are like complementary, they are not competing with each other. But yeah, that's a wonderful part of using all these concepts together. So the next interesting concept is agents, also known as sub-agents. And these are separate Claude instances that run with their own context window, own set of permissions. And if you might be wondering, like, why do I want one? There are two reasons for this. The first one is the parallel execution. You can spin up, let's say, four sub-agents to review your code simultaneously. One could focus on security, the other could focus on performance, and the other can focus on readability and so on. And they'll work along with each other. So that is the first thing. And the second is the context isolation. So when you give a sub-agent to work on a deep research task, it doesn't pollute like the main Windows context, and it does its own work. It returns your result, and the main context, main Claude, will have a clean slate. So it essentially helps in isolating the context. And the subagents are defined in Markdown files, just like skills we have seen, and it will be under the agents folder. Again, they can be at the personal level or the project level. Now let's see the subagents in action. Let's say I want to research about the memory, and for this, I want you to spin up two agents. One will be focusing on, let's say, the advancements that are happening in the space. Another will be focusing on the applications of it. Let's go. As we can see on the screen, there will be two research agents that will be running in parallel. This really helps in not polluting this main context that I was telling you about. It will run these tasks in its own context. It got some agent ID, and then it will return the results in some output file for us. And we will be notified when it's done. So this is how you can use subagents in Claude if you want. Lastly, we want to cover the concept of plugins. I know there's a lot of information in this video. If you want, you can watch it on repeat, but I wanted to cover everything in one, so it's more easy for you to understand the differences between each of these. For plugin, you can think of it like a distribution system. So plugin contains skills, slash commands, subagents, and MCP servers. Everything that we have seen so far, everything bundled together becomes a plugins. You can think of plugins like something like an app store, but basically for Cloud Code. So it allows you to distribute your plugins to others. So you can get all the official plugins that are being supported by Anthropic in this repo. They have the external plugins as well as the internal plugins. So let's go to an external plugin. Let's select GitHub. So this plugin.json file is something that we need. So along with it, there will be commands, skills, MCP servers, and agents. And once the plugin is installed, everything will work on its own. And plugins really help in standardizing things. So don't have to invent your plugins. If somebody has created a plugin, they can publish it and anybody can just install it. That's a superpower with plugin. It really allows you to distribute very easily. So those were the concepts that I wanted to discuss. I know it was a power packed video. And to recap, I'll just do a decision framework sort of thing with you. So you need to ask yourself these questions. The question number one is, do you want your Cloud Code to connect to external service? If the answer is yes, then you need an MCP server for it. Question number two, do you want Cloud to automatically know how it can handle certain type of tasks? If yes, then you have to write a skill. The third question is, do you want to trigger a specific workflow manually? Then we have the slash commands. The fourth one is, do you need a parallel or isolated execution? Then you need to spin up your own sub agents. Question number five is, do you want to share your setup with others? Then you have to package everything into a plugin and distribute it through a marketplace. So that brings us to an end of the video. I hope it was useful. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.